How's it going? Dave from Comic Book Investments. Well, today is going to be another top 10 video, and this one will be the top 10 Spider-Man comics to invest in. Now, I did a lot of research, and there's a lot of books on here that I wish I could put in, but there's only 10. So this was actually one of the hardest lists I had to do, just simply because there's just so many good Spider-Man books, and it's really hard to narrow it down to top 10. But for this, it's not necessarily what's gone up the most value over a period of time or most percentage. This is more long-term investing. What I think the best comics, Spider-Man comics, are to invest in long-term, and they'll either A, go up a significant amount, or it will hold their value and slightly go up. But yeah, so let's get into it. But before I do, if you haven't subscribed already, please think about subscribing. That'd really help out the channel. And I really love this picture of Spider-Man here. I couldn't decide between two for this thumbnail, but I really love this one. All right, so let's just dive right into it at number 10. Number 10, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 252. And this month, currently, it sells for an average in a 9/8 grade, sells for an average of $1,742. 5 years ago, in 2016, it sold for $302. And then 10 years ago, it sold for $187. And this is for a 9/8 grade. That is a 5-year return of 477%, a 10-year return of 832%. The record price for ever one sold was a 9.9, and it sold for $6,000 back in 2015. So 9.9 hasn't popped up in a while. Now, if you look at the very bottom, you'll see that there's a 10-year return for the Dow Jones, the S&P 500, Amazon, and Apple. I put those in there because I want to show you compare it to stocks. Now, you got the Dow Jones, which is kind of the standard. It barely goes up and down. The S&P 500 is this going to be the top 500 companies, and that usually has an average return rate of anywhere from 8 to 10% a year. And Amazon is just a giant beast, and so is Apple. Just great blue chip stocks. So these are 10-year returns for those stocks. And as you can see, 10-year return, this does as well as Apple. And the reason why I show this is to show that comics can be comparable to stocks. And Amazon, Apple are probably one of the best stocks in the last 10 years. And obviously it blows the Dow Jones and S&P 500 out of the water. All right, moving on to number 9. Number 9, we got Spider-Man 194. And this sits at currently sells for a 9.8, sells for about $5,147. This, of course, is the first appearance of Black Cat. 5 years ago, this sold in a 9.8 for $835. 10 years ago, sold for $394. That's a 5-year return of 516%, and then a 10-year return of 1,206%. So a lot, quite a bit. Record price is a 9.8 selling for $5,760 this year. Now, there are 9.9s that do exist, but the last 9.9 sold many, many years ago, I think like 5 or 6 years ago, and it sold for about $5,000. So less than a 9.8 currently goes for. And of course, this pretty much beats Apple and almost comes close to Amazon, but of course beats out the Dow Jones and S&P 500. And one thing to note, if you like these new graphics, I did not do them. This is thanks to a guy that reached out to me. His name is Arnie. Super awesome guy, and helped out with these graphics. So thank you. All right, moving on to number 8. We got Ultimate Fallout 4, and this is the first appearance of Miles Morales. Now, yes, it's not Peter Parker Spider-Man, but it is Spider-Man. And trust me, I had a lot of trouble trying to figure out what goes on this list, what doesn't go on this list. Is very hard. But I think Miles Morales has established himself as a very key character in the Marvel universe, not just in the movies, but also in the comics. And he's definitely going to be a mainstay. He's not just going to be a flash in the pan or maybe a character that has to do with like if a movie's coming out. Like I wanted to put, Spider-Man 101 on this list with the first Morbius, but I feel like that's although Morbius is a great character, has his own series and all sorts of stuff, and it's great. He's definitely in the top 20, right? Comic books. I just feel like someone like him really popped off more due to the movie that's coming out. And this is more just long term. I don't want to, yes, movies are and TV shows are factors, but I don't want to just be like, oh, whoever's getting the latest bump in here from a movie, yep, they're on the list. So this is, what if they never make a movie, or they make one Morbius movie and that's it. In the next 10 years, they never make another one. All right. He is currently a 9.8, sells for about $2,335. 5 years ago, that was $234. Wow. And then 10 years ago, that was $68. Man, it was cheap back then. That has a 5-year return, about 900%, 10-year return of 3,334%. That is insane. A 9.8 sells for roughly, or a record price of $3,840, and that was this year. Now, I've done videos on this where I think it's going to go. I don't think it's going to maybe shoot to the moon as some people think it's going to go, but I think it's going to hold strong, and I've noticed that it has been, it dipped a lot recently because all comics kind of took a big dip, but it's kind of leveled out, and I think it will stay pretty much like long term. I don't think you have to worry about losing money on this book. All right, next we got number 7, and that is Spider-Man 50. And this is the first appearance of Kingpin. The reason why he's on this list is I feel like Kingpin not only is a great Spider-Man villain, but he's also a great Daredevil villain, and he's actually appeared in the Daredevil TV show. He is a villain that crosses over between many different characters as kind of like a main villain. And yes, I think he's just a really good character, and they seem to always use him in TV shows and movies. So he's been in the Daredevil movie, he's been in the Daredevil TV show, so I think he will, stick around. All right, so you can currently get one in an 8.0, you can currently get one for $4,900. 5 years ago, that would have been $760, and then 10 years ago, that would have been $517. 5-year return of about 550%, 10-year return about 850%. A record price, 9.8 sold for $55,000 back in 2020. So it pretty much ties with Apple, beats out the rest, but doesn't beat Amazon. And like I said, Amazon is a massive, massive giant. I tried to put like the best of the best. Most companies in here, will stick around the Dow Jones and S&P 500, over the course of 10 years. But I tried to pick really good stocks just so you can see. All right, moving on to number 6. And we got Amazing Spider-Man 14. This is the first appearance of the Green Goblin. And the Green Goblin is, not only is it Spider-Man's best friend's dad, Norman Osborn, but he's always around, always sitting, somewhere in there. He's just one of Spider-Man's greatest villains of all time. A 5.0 sells for currently about $3,480. 5 years ago, it was $763. 10 years ago, $425. That was a 5-year return at 350%. A 10-year return of about 719%. A 9.6 record price just sold for $210,000. Ugh, man, that's crazy. That is just insane. And actually, I think that is supposed to be a 9.8, not a 9.6. I wrote that down wrong. I'm just going off of my memory. Because I used to have a 9.6, and I sold it nowhere near for that price. I think I sold it for 20-something thousand, like many, many years ago. But yeah, that's supposed to be a 9.8. Moving on to number 5. We got Amazing Spider-Man number 3. This is the first appearance of Dr. Octopus. A 5.0 is going to run you about $5,259. 5 years ago, that was about $1,135, and 10 years ago, it was about $670. Why do I always pick different grade ranges? Like it's 5.0, maybe it's a 9.4. I try to pick just average grades that you can kind of find out there. They're not like crazy impossible to find. Like I'm not going to put like a 9.6 of this up there. It's like one comes up every like 5 or 10 years. So I try to give like a good balance grade when I'm pricing these out. Ones that you can find fairly easily, and also ones that have a lot of data on them. All right, that's a 5-year return of 363%, 10-year return of 685%. A 9.6 just sold like a couple days ago for $144,000, and that's the record price. So obviously these books beat out the S&P 500 and Dow Jones like nothing. This one comes close to Apple, but pretty far away from Amazon. But you got to diversify. And the reason why I put this book on here is I just feel like Doc Ock is someone that they've always used in movies, just a mainstay villain for Spider-Man, one of the best. Like I said, it was very hard coming off the list. There's so many good villains, so many good keys in Spider-Man, so this was hard. All right, moving on to number 4. We got Spider-Man 300, first appearance of Venom. And the reason why this one's on the list is because it's Venom. Like, hugely, hugely popular character. He came from Spider-Man, from Todd McFarlane. He went on to obviously, have his own movies, tons of his own comics. Just a massive, massive character. I mean, it's hard to get much bigger than Venom. All right, a 9.8 sells for around 6,350. 5 years ago, that would have been around $1,200, and then 10 years ago, it was $768. Wow, that was a 5-year return of $413, a 10-year return of $727. A record sale was $25,000 last year in 2020, and it was a 9.9. So almost up to where Apple is at $855. Obviously, this is the first appearance of Venom. It's an iconic book. I mean, you see this cover and this image all the time. And yeah, it's just, he had to be on this list. All right, getting towards the end. Number 3, Amazing Spider-Man 129. This is the first appearance of Punisher. And obviously Punisher is a massive character as well. Had his own TV show, multiple movies. There's the one with Dolph Lundgren, who was in Rocky IV. He's the Russian. And that was in, 89 or something, like 1990, I think, somewhere in there. And then they had the one with Tom Jane, which I really liked. And then they had Ray Stevens was the other Punisher in Punisher Warzone. So they've had 3 movies. They had, I think his series ran for, 2 seasons, his TV show. So massively popular character. I see the skull everywhere. So currently a 9.4 sits at about 5,400. 5 years ago, that would have been $2,275. And about 10 years ago, it would have cost you about $1,182. That has a 5-year return of 137%, a 10-year return of 357%. Now you look at the returns, right, and you're like, well, that's not as much as some of the other ones, like the Ultimate Fallout, was 10 times that. And yeah, but when you start out at $5, it's pretty easy, when you go up. So like I said, this is not about what gains the most return. This is about quality of investment, right? This is one where it's it has a ton of history and a ton of stuff behind it where you're not going to drop by a ton. It's going to continue to stay and continue to go up. All right, a record price, 9.8 sold for $43,200 just this year. All right, number 2. We got Amazing Spider-Man number 1. This is the second appearance of Spider-Man. He tried to join the Fantastic Four, but they wouldn't let him. They were like, we're the Fantastic Four, not the Fantastic Five. That doesn't make any sense, Spider-Man. Get out of here, stupid kid. That's what they said. And they beat him up and threw him out. And then he never did anything ever again. All right, anyways, a 5.0, CGC 5.0 is going to run you currently about $23,900. 5 years ago, that would have been about $7,464. And then 10 years ago, it would have been about $4,750. That has a 5-year return of 220%, a 10-year return of 403%, with a record sale at a 9.6 selling back in 2016 for $263,000. What would that be today? In the millions, that's for sure. but someone got a good deal back in 2016. You know, the price of a house. Wow. Yes, so 403%, half as much as Apple, double the amount of S&P 500, but still all around, you know, a quality investment if you want to diversify. Like, you could have done way worse if you put in some other stocks that could have got like only, you know, 100% gain or a 50% gain over 10 years. But still, very, very good. All right, before I get to the final one, if you made it this far, if you haven't subscribed already, please think about subscribing. Just click that little thing. If you've already subscribed, maybe comment below saying a book that you wish was on here that I should have considered. Trust me, I consider it a lot. Also, hit that like button. All right, number one, we all know what it is. I mean, unless you're brand new to comics and this is the first video you've ever watched on comic books and you barely even know, you've heard of Spider-Man but know nothing about him, we all know what's number one. It is going to be Amazing Fantasy 15, of course. Very iconic cover. And yes, so a 3.5 is going to currently run about $40,750. 5 years ago, the same book, 3.5, would have been $13,177. 10 years ago, it would have been $5,366. That is a 5-year return of 209%, a 10-year return of 659%. Now, I just did a video on this. A 9.6 record sale price, which is not the single highest grade. I think there's like 3 or 4 of them at a 9.6. Just sold for $3.6 million, most expensive comic book ever. And so that was what it did. So, you know, 660%, not as quite as high as Apple, but pretty close, getting there. So yes, that pretty much concludes this top 10 video. I hope you guys all have a great rest of the weekend and have a great day. Thanks. Bye.